Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. I'm excited to do another episode of This Week in Niche Pursuits News. We've got some news items. We got some weird niche sites. We got some other side hustles that we're going to talk about a little bit. Of course, I got Jared with me. Jared, how you doing today?
Oh, very well. Very well. Good to be here, Spencer.
Good. You know, I'm up here in Washington State, and it is the dead of winter. If I were to look out my window right now, it is snowing really hard. It's about 20 degrees outside. It's supposed to snow 5 to 8 inches today. And you let it slip that you were about to go out for a jog here in just a little bit. And I got really, really jealous. So what's the weather like there?
It's a little chilly today. It's actually about 62 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a little chilly.
62.
I might put on, a long sleeve shirt for my
chilly. That's rough. That is rough. So you're going to just go outside. You're going to just go for a jog. We're mid-January.
Mid-January, you got a nice lake nearby. I'll go for a run around the lake. The wind might pick up. We might hit 5 miles an hour of wind off that lake front. Might dip into the 50s if we go too long here on the podcast recording,
Oh, man. Well, I'll try not to, go too long so you can enjoy that nice sunny California weather.
Thank you.
There's some perks. What do they say? People move to California for the weather.
Yeah.
This is the time of year where I am very jealous.
Yeah,
very jealous.
We had our company call, my marketing agency. We had our company call every Thursday, and that's the day we record the podcast. And the first 5 minutes was everyone around the country sharing all the different snow stories and who's snowed in and how long they're snowed in for. So it's quite a week of weather right now around, at least around the United States.
But that's okay. The news goes on, right? Here we are. The news goes on.
Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
In this video, I will show you how we landed a placement on BBC and dozens of links in massive regional online publications such as Wales Online, Daily Post, and many more. This PR campaign was about the easiest place to pass your driving test for the first time in the UK. This is how we've done it. We simply went to DVLA website, found the latest car driving test data by test center, and downloaded the data in a CSV format. Once we had the data, all we had to do is to look at the number of total tests per test center, then look at the number of first time passes to calculate the percentage of people who passed their test for the first time. Once we had the percentage numbers, we created a press release with our findings. Then we went to Roxhill and found journalists who talk about driving tests, and also looked for journalists who write in regional publications in the UK. In total, we have found about 1,800 journalists and sent them our press release by email. Within less than a day, our story got picked up by BBC, Cornwall Live, Wales Online, and dozens of other publications in the UK, providing our client a tsunami of backlinks perfectly relevant to the audience of the client, who is a specialist in learner driver car insurance. I hope this video is helpful and it shows you how you can also build links with freely available data from official sources.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now.
Google doesn't stop serving up search results. As webmasters, we don't stop trying to rank in Google. And wouldn't you know it, but the very first news story that we're going to cover is a large study that has come out and said Google is getting worse. And supposedly, these are some scientists out of, I believe it was Germany, that have proven that, according to their study, Google is indeed getting worse. And so this story was covered in pretty much all major publications. So I just pulled up the one that is in Mashable, Mashable.com, covered this story. It says, it's not just you. Google search really has gotten worse, according to this German study. And it's kind of interesting because this is coming kind of from the scientific community, people that have actually dug into the data and the stats. And according to them, their conclusion is that the Google results have gotten a little bit worse. They posed this question. They looked at Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo for a year, it says, across 7,392 product review queries, right? So that's all that they focused on. And they basically came to the conclusion that a torrent of low-quality content, especially for product search, keeps drowning any kind of useful information in search results. And that a lot of it, or some of it, was outright SEO product review spam. Now, a Google spokesperson did respond to this Mashable story and said that the study doesn't reflect the overall quality and helpfulness of search. They emphasize that the study only focuses on a narrow set of queries, namely product search. Anyways, and it kind of goes on. Google, of course, says that, hey, search engine results are actually getting better. We disagree with this study. So I don't know if you want to jump in, but I was going to kind of go over to the study itself.
Yeah.
It's pretty lengthy. If
That's
anybody
putting it
wants to
mildly.
read it,
Yeah.
It's a longitudinal investigation of SEO spam in search engines. So I'm going to have to pull up my dictionary to fully understand what that means. But they looked at a lot of data, and at the core, I think the data sets they looked at are represented in these 12, 16 graphs. They looked at things like number of affiliate links, the URL depth of the page, I don't know what function word ratio means exactly, the main content word count, the Fleisch reading scale. I do know what that counts. Word count, image count, other things. And all of these graphs are over the rank in Google. So basically, it's showing that there is an inverse relationship, if I look at the Fleisch grade, between the Fleisch grade, 8.5 to 8, right? The grade level, like how complicated is the reading of it. So I think I'm reading that right, that, if you're around 8th or 8.5 grade level reading, you have a higher chance of ranking. And then the results get lower as you go, further into Google. So there's a lot. It's interesting, but my big question is, what do they judge as low quality, right? In their conclusion, they use the word, let me see if I can find it. Low quality shows signs of lower text quality, right? Although we cannot predict the rank of individual pages at the population level, we can conclude that higher ranked pages are on average more optimized, more monetized with affiliate marketing, and they show signs of lower text quality. Now, that's what I don't understand. And they do, as far as I can tell, they only mention the phrase lower text quality twice in the study, both of which are in the conclusion. So there seems to be this mysterious thing of lower text quality that is ranking. That would be my big question, is what are they referring to? How did they judge that? That sort of thing. So any high-level thoughts from you, Jared?
Yeah, a couple things here. This is interesting. Some of those graphs you're showing. I got an email from my my alma mater this week, UCSD, and they're discontinuing my major. Say that what it will about the major I chose 20 plus years ago, but those charts are basically what I majored in. So I was kind of looking over some of the classes I took from college and reminding myself about all these types of charts and data sets that I would review. That's a bit of an aside, though. I think you're right. I mean, here's here's what I highlighted, which is, I think, in part and parcel with what you're highlighting. So here's a quote, I believe, from the Mashable article, which is obviously summarized in this PDF. And it says, the study in question, this one we have on the screen, showed that Google results did improve, quote unquote, to some extent between the start of the researcher's experiment and the end. Still, they found an overall downwards trend in text quality in all three search engines. So how can both those be at the same time? How can results improve, but there be a downward trend in quality across all three engines? So inconclusive is a bit maybe just what to take from that, in my opinion. Certainly there's that angle for it. And then I like the fact that there's a study out that almost validates what you and I've been saying on the podcast for a while. Like, it does feel like the search results have gotten worse, but to only study product reviews feels like a big miss. And then to go out and say results are worse across all of Google, I mean, again, I hate to give
Yes.
Google a little bit of a way out, but feels like a real slight. Like, we know that product reviews make up a minuscule percentage of what Google represents. So those are my two big comments on it.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. I mean, their study was only on just a little over 7,000 product review queries. Like, even Glenn Alsop, individual, he did, what was it? It was at least 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. So his study was
figures, I remember.
bigger, than this huge, apparently scientific study. The other interesting thing of note, it was in here, and they listed the different, I will see it here shortly, the different types of pages that were ranking.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Here we go. And I like how they give all these categories to, they've got Amazon, YouTube, Pinterest, New York Times, The Spruce, bestreviews.guide. They've got several different websites listed, and then they categorize them. And they don't specify, right, they do not specify how they gave this category. So I assume some German guy sat down and said, this looks like spam, and so it's, we'll highlight it in green. So, some get the tag of authentic review site, and they don't say what that is. New York Times, Tom's Guide, and PC Mag made that cut, right? Other things they just have listed as magazine. I like that. The Spruce, New York Mag, Forbes, Insider. These are magazines, right? And then spam is bestreviews.guide, Gist Gear, Cherry Picks Reviews. I haven't gone to those websites, but and then web shops, right? Anyways, a lot of the findings in the study, I think, are probably suspect based on the fact that they didn't share how they categorized all of this information, all of this data.
And some of them are wrong. I've talked, I think, on the podcast before about how much I like Serious Eats as a publication and whatnot, but they're not a magazine. And if you go down there and scan down there, I think they have them tagged as a magazine there down near the bottom. So, I mean, they're just an online publication.
Yeah.
And so it's first off, we don't know how they picked them. Second off, they definitely put some in the wrong category.
Right. Yeah.
CNN's a magazine now.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Nice.
Is CNN? CNN's a news site. Are they? I realize we have a lot of parasite SEO happening, but I didn't know it got around to CNN.
Yeah. So, yeah. To say the least, a lot of this is questionable. Again, their conclusion of, there's a lot of lower quality text that is now ranking. I don't know what lower quality text means. So I do like the effort by, perhaps scientists or somebody to put together a in-depth study, but a lot of the things like you mentioned that, hey, the quality's improved a little bit of late, but overall in our study, Google is still getting worse. How do we make those two comments jibe together?
It's fun to have, kind of like what you brought up at the beginning. It's fun to have a third-party study that's outside of our industry, right? Like, at first I hear that and I think, oh my goodness, this is great. It's just not just a bunch of SEOs studying SEO results. At the same time, though, you can see threads of kind of why it's important, because the nuance we understand about this industry does come through when we investigate things. Whereas when a kind of, random German like institution or educational place evaluates it, they don't have that nuance.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's an outsider coming in, trying to make an inside look. Just interesting. Thought we would share it. It's a news item. That's what we're here to do, is just kind of share what's happening in the news. And so maybe we'll leave it at that and see what happens over time with it. But another thing that has been in the news, I mean, boy, we have talked about it a lot this year, is SGE, Search Generative Experience. It's happening more and more frequent on more and more queries. Google is not letting down with their plans to continue rolling this out. And Search Engine Land recently put out a stat here that said, which I found very interesting, 94% of Google SGE links are different from organic search result, the study finds. And so basically, if you get an SGE result, most of the time, those links are all different from what you would get in the natural search results. Very interesting. SGE showed for 86.8% of the keywords in this analysis. Overall, SGEs showed about
That's a
10
lot.
links per answer, but only about 4 unique links. And I think they made four unique websites, maybe?
Yeah, unique
Is that what
domain
that means?
links. I was going to clarify that
Yeah,
as well. That was my
yeah.
understanding. So
Yeah, that
different
was,
links from the same website, I believe, is the way that should be phrased.
yeah, exactly. But you're right. 10 links per answer is quite a few. So now we've got 10 links in the SGE answer. We've got, call it 10 links in the traditional first page of organic results, right?
And most are not the same.
And most are not the same. So is this good or bad for us as publishers? What do you think?
Well, I think our next news topic might answer that question, but I'll answer your question as though I don't know the next topic we have by saying glasses half full says more opportunities to get on the front page. And we know that if you're not in the front page, you're not going to get seen at all, period, end of story. Frankly, if you're not in the top 3 results, you're really not going to get many clicks. So glasses half full says, wow, okay, good study that shows that there's potentially hope now that SG is landed on links inside of it that presents some opportunity. And if you're not on the first page organically, there's also opportunity to now be in SGE. So that's glass half full. Glass half empty says, how are we going to figure out how to optimize for SGE if it's vastly different than optimizing for organic search results?
Right. And if you happen to be ranking number 1 in organic search results and all of a sudden you got an SGE pack right ahead of you, what does that do to your traffic?
Which 86 point whatever percent have an SGE pack ahead of you?
Yes, they do. It was only 13.2% of keywords failed to trigger an SGE content. And does it say...
Where's the part on... It broke down. Oh, that's in the next article. Sorry.
Okay.
These next 2 articles, we are getting a bit confused, or at least I am. You're not. No. I think this is interesting. So SGE, I wanted to ask you about this. SGE appeared for 86.8% of the results, right? So that means that box was there. But for 65.9% of the time, the generate button version of SGE was what was presented. And that was much more often than the show more button. And we'll have that in our next article as well. But I did want to bring it out here because I think that's interesting that we're seeing that they're not auto-generating it for the vast majority of the SERPs, whether that's because it takes too long or because people don't like it. We don't really know, or maybe another reason.
Yeah. No, that is interesting. I mean, they're continuing to test, and it could be that they're finding whatever results they're looking at. People are coming, back to other search results more often. 65.9% of the time, they're having the generate button instead of the show more button, I guess is what it's called. So very interesting. The study itself, it was from 1,000 commercial keywords across 10 different categories that people can see on screen, ranging from automotive, finance, food and beverage to travel and hospitality. So they kind of dipped into, I would call, all the major sort of categories. So
where do you think they're getting all these results for SGE if they're not pulling them from what's in there? I mean, we don't know. I get that, but it seems weird. Like if you have an algorithm that you spent 20 plus years building and defend to its core that it is the best representation of what's online, why would you not pull from the best representations that are online?
That is a good question. And maybe part of this goes to the corporate nature of Google and how large they've become. I mean, how many thousands of employees do they have? How many different departments do they have, right? The search team is probably completely different than the AI generation team, the AI Gemini team, perhaps is completely different. And so they've developed a new model and now they're just sort of, hey, we should plug in our model into the SERPs. And they say, okay, we'll add this widget. I don't know. It's like the 2 teams don't talk to each other.
You know what it feels like? It feels like I showed up in Washington to visit, and it's snowing. So I can't get together, Spencer. And I say, you live in this area. Tell me your top 10 restaurants because we can't hang out tonight. So, where should I go? And you give me a list of top 10 restaurants, and the snow's coming down hard. So I say, I'm just going to go to the restaurant right down the street. And I find you there, even though you didn't recommend it. And I say, what's going on? And you're like, oh, well, I live by a different set of recommendations for myself.
Yeah. That's right. Two standards, two different standards.
It seems weird, but maybe we'll learn more. Obviously, SGE is so new, but it just seems a bit off. I think you're exactly right. AI and organic results. We know it's a big company. We certainly learned a lot of that from the antitrust lawsuit, and the fact that there are clear distinctions in departments. And so, I think you're probably onto something there.
Yeah, and their AI models are newer, right, and evolving and learning. And so there's going to be testing to probably see, hey, are these SGE links and results better than our organic results? And maybe there will be some crossover eventually. I don't know. Okay, let's get to this last topic that also is related to SGE results, right? This study looked at exactly the Google SGE impact by industry and some of the emerging features. So there was an analysis done of 1 billion queries across 9 industries, and it reveals that healthcare is the most impacted by SGE. And where do we get the numbers? Here we go. Right. This is showing us that the number of queries that triggered an SGE result.
That's what I think is super interesting too.
Yeah.
There's some interesting data there.
At the top is healthcare with 76% of the time a SGE result was triggered, and down at the bottom was finance, only 17% of the queries, and we've got all the other industries in between. So what are some of your thoughts? It sounded like you had a couple things to say about it.
Oh, I have so many about this one. We should have this one first.
Maybe so.
Maybe not. I think it's just Jared's into it. Well, first off, I mean, this data study showed me for the first time that I can think of, like, obviously things can change, but man, oh man, does finance not look like a good industry, a good website, a good niche to go into now that we have learned that healthcare and some other ones have literally 6 to 7 times the AI impact that it would in finance?
Yeah. You know what's really interesting about this? Sorry if I'm cutting you off, but
no.
You've got EEAT or these your money, your life niches, right? And I would group both finance and healthcare in that your money, your life. Right?
I mean, travel makes sense sitting at 30%. We thought travel would be a little insulated from AI because it requires kind of on-the-ground experience combined with what you write and what you produce. But finance at 17%, that blows my mind.
It does, because you would kind of think that, hey, maybe the reason it doesn't trigger is because Google doesn't want to tiptoe, get into something or recommend something that they shouldn't. But if healthcare,
I wouldn't want AI recommending healthcare recommendations.
It's like, what should I do about this, growth? I mean, that's that I got, and
that's a bit like the Medic update almost spun out of that, right? From 2018 was bad advice about medical topics to begin with, really, and then it spun out into this idea of YMYL. And so if we look back to 2018, you would feel like healthcare would be down with finance. I totally agree.
Yeah, that seems like it would be the case, but it is not. It is not the case. They're comfortable showing healthcare 76% of the time. The next highest is e-commerce at 49% of the time. So it's a significant, almost 30% greater percent of the time that it's shown for healthcare. So
yes.
And what is this? Oh, and then they give a breakdown by state, whether it's collapsed. I can't even read that.
Yeah.
Here we go. Opt-in. Is that what it says? Opt-in. What's an opt-in? I don't know.
Opt-in, I believe, is where you have to click to get the expanded. No, that was collapsed.
Is it, maybe that's the generate button?
What is it? Yeah. No, I have this in my notes too to talk about. Opt-in is when users must request an AI-generated answer. Collapse is when a truncated AI-generated answer is shown. None is when a query does not trigger SGE.
Okay.
So
opt-in is the generate button, basically. Do you want an AI answer? Do you want an SGE result? Yeah.
And this is where, it's easy to look at the overall percentages, which are touted. But if you break down the overall percentages, I also find that a bit fascinating. Again, would love to get your take on it. Let's look at healthcare. 76% of queries had it, but 70% were collapsed versus 17% required you to request an AI answer. The next one down, as you mentioned, is e-commerce. Yes, 49% of queries generated SGE, but only 25% collapsed compared to 70%, and 72% were opt-in versus 17%. Look at restaurants. Restaurants was 96%
Wow.
opt-in. And so I think it's
Wow.
fascinating to see the differences that they're clearly either testing or learning about whether to generate a collapsed SGE or whether to ask the reader to generate it on their own.
It's just funny because, you were talking about restaurant recommendations here. Google's not comfortable just right off the bat saying, hey, you should go eat at these restaurants.
Well, as they
They'll
should
tell you which pill you should take, right away.
Nice.
So anyways, fascinating results, to say the least. Now I don't know how to get back to my screen where I just was. Here
There
we
you
go.
go.
But yeah, it's interesting to follow along. Cool to see the industry breakdown. Does this make you decide to go into a certain niche? If you're already in healthcare, it's like, I don't know that you can do much about that. But we'll see where this all ends up. It'd be interesting to see a study in a year from now and how these have changed. I imagine it will change quite a bit.
I do like how we basically talked about 3 studies here today.
Mhm.
And what this one was with 1 billion queries. And the first one we talked about was 7,000.
Yeah. And that's the one that got all the press coverage.
And that's the one that
Right.
got all the press coverage.
Man, I could do a 7,000 query study on my own. I mean,
You could do that on Twitter.
You could do that on Twitter. I mean, that's really not that. But here I am talking about it, not doing it. So,
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
kudos to the German
I agree.
researchers. They did it. We just talk about it and complain. So
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Just wanted to take a short break and remind you that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. I've got a short clip from Ferry at Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a masterpiece PR link building campaign. With 20 links in big publications such as The Sun, Express, Mirror, Wales Online, and still landing, I would say this campaign is a massive success. We told the press that people should turn on their heating this summer if they want to save money next winter. And we landed over 20 links in national and regional UK publications for our boiler client. That's crazy. The campaign hook was pretty clever. It is a known fact, at least in the boiler trade, that if you keep your boiler off for many months, it might rust and it might get you into trouble if you keep it turned off from spring to next winter. We therefore advise the press, with an expert commentary piece, on behalf of our boiler client, that people should turn on their boilers this summer just when the heat wave is in full swing. This way they can avoid a boiler failure next winter and save money. Massive publications picked up our story, including The Sun, Express, Mirror, Wales Online, and a few more dozen publications, giving our client links, lots of links, and lots of happiness hormones. No wonder that so many journalists covered our story, as this headline is a massive link magnet to their audience. This case study highlights the fact that a clever hook can be applied to any insight or story to make a campaign more successful and more compelling to journalists. Can you imagine when people see this headline in the news, you should turn on your boiler this summer? There's no way they would not click on it. I would click on it. So this was the hook, and this is why this campaign was so successful. I hope this video inspires and shows you what's possible with a clever hook.
Are you looking for similar link building PR campaigns for your website? If so, just go to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them today.
Okay, very good. So that's the main news, I guess, that we're going to cover today. We are going to talk about a couple of shiny object shenanigans that we have going on. It's kind of a second week in a row, I guess, that it's going to be slightly different. We're not really talking about, Amazon influencer.
Ooh, I have an update there.
Well, maybe we will talk about it a little bit.
A non-agenda item that I can share.
Okay, we'll squeeze that in there. We can do that. But I wanted to talk about the new podcast channel one more time here. So I mentioned here on this podcast, of course, that I had created the new channel. And yesterday I released the very first interview episode, the podcast interview with Amy Aitman. And I was so worried that because there was no subscribers on the new channel, that nobody would find this interview, nobody would listen. And I wanted to give Amy, her time to shine here as best as possible. I'm happy to say that it's gotten over 1,200 listens in just over the first 24 hours, which is very solid. It's kind of at the lower bandwidth of, maybe lower than average on the old channel, but I would call that very good, going from my established YouTube channel to a brand new channel, very first video ever posted, getting 1,200 views in the first hour. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel good knowing that, hey, I think we're going to be all right. People are going to still find the podcast. They're still going to listen. Of course, I did email my list about it, and I linked directly to the YouTube video and asked them to subscribe. I shared it on social media. So I gave it a little extra love to make sure people found it. But I'm feeling like I'm on the right track. Separating the channels, I don't think is going to cause too many problems going forward.
365 subscribers. I'm looking at it right now.
Yep.
A little lighter than I was hoping for, but I'm ever the optimist. I think I went on record last week and said we get 1,000, no problem.
Yeah, in the first week. And I'm wondering, when do we start that clock? Do we really start it from when we recorded our episode last week, or do we start that clock from, hey, I just released the first episode yesterday?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well,
I think within the week, by the time I release the next podcast episode next Wednesday, I think we'll be the 1,000 spot. Okay. Because I mentioned it once in one email, a couple of tweets, right? And that's pretty much been it. So if you are listening to this podcast episode, wherever you are, please subscribe to the new YouTube channel. It's the Niche Pursuits podcast channel. All of Jared's interviews, all of the news episodes are going on that new channel. The URL is pretty easy to remember. Just go to youtube.com/@Niche Pursuits Podcast. It's just @Niche Pursuits Podcast. And, or if you just search it on YouTube, you'll find it. Hit the subscribe button. That way you won't miss any episodes. I'd love it. Jared would love it. He puts a lot of work into all the interviews, and we just want to make sure people find that they're not waiting on the old channel, hoping to listen to the next interview. So,
and it's worth mentioning that the podcast gets listened to on audio platforms way more than it gets watched on YouTube anyways. And don't get me wrong, YouTube is a viable channel for the podcast, but it is a smaller channel, according to what I understand, than a lot of the audio ones.
Correct. You are correct. Yep. Because there's Spotify, there's Apple Podcasts, there's, everywhere any app, that people have, that gets a lot more listens. And so that does not change if you are listening on Spotify or Apple. Just continue to do that. But if you were watching on YouTube, right, we just want to make sure that percentage of people continue to get that.
So we didn't slight Amy too much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's doing great. She's getting plenty of listens.
It's a good interview.
Plenty of love from the audience.
She's great.
Yeah, she's a great personality too. I love Amy. I've met her in person a couple of times, and she's fun to hang out with.
Jeez, you've met her more than me.
Yeah, I guess so. We've been to the same conference at least twice.
Yeah,
and so
that's because I never leave this. I never leave this box here except
it's all virtual. Yeah, that room. Other than your late afternoon runs in the sunny California weather. It's
just work outside, really, is what I should do. Although the setup wouldn't be quite as dialed in.
We should do an outdoor podcast. I'll have snow coming down. You've got the sun next to you.
You're going to be like, Jared, can you please share the screen? I can't feel my fingers anymore.
It's for real. Yeah. But that's it for my little side hustle project. What do you got going on?
I thought I'd share a fun little story for people, and about how side hustles can build on side hustles. I wasn't going to talk about this week because it just came about this week, and it kind of came up out of the middle of nowhere. I've been doing an email series on weekend growth this entire month on schema. First series I've ever done. I was encouraged to do one by Tony Hill, a friend of the podcast, who said that he found that he got a lot of success and engagement when he kind of talked about the same subject matter for a couple of weeks in a row. And so I've been doing this series, and I emailed out part 1 the first week of January, part 2 the second week of January. I was getting emails back from people saying like, man, that's a long read on setting up this kind of schema or that kind of schema. Like, do you guys just do that at your agency? And I'm like, well, no, it's really easy. I just showed you how to do it. And they're like, I don't want to do it, or it's not really easy for me. And I'm like, well, of course not. That's the whole reason I have an agency. If everyone, had the time or the energy or the expertise to do it all themselves, I wouldn't have a business. So this week I thought, let's just throw something together to help people out. Let's actually send the email this week, but instead of having to field emails about it, let me just put something at the very bottom that said, hey, if you need help setting up this schema, just punch this, just reply and we'll get you started on that. And so within a couple of days, we have a little schema service set up at 201 Creative. It's not selling like gangbusters, but it's certainly a 4-figure revenue already on it just from this week. And it just reminds me, like, you get those little whims sometimes, and we talk about shiny object syndrome and getting distracted, but this wasn't hard. This wasn't difficult. It really, literally was just talking to the team and putting a line in there and giving people a way to sign up for it. And it's something that we already have a process for internally. And so sometimes it's interesting to think about those little ideas we get and leaning into them. And, again, this is just one of those little things that's a nice little side hustle income, if you will, but it generated out of a side hustle. And it's just another little thing to bolt on. And I just am so curious how many of those are available to us every week as we go about what we're doing. And, we have that thought, but we don't lean into it, or we get distracted, or we're too busy, or we don't write it down, or we don't just jump on it. That's kind of the whole theory behind our influencer program last year. Is we've talked a lot about how we definitely didn't do it very strategically, but we did one thing. We just jumped on it.
Yep. I think it's fascinating that you bring this up. In my mind, it's a very niche idea, right? And so here on the Niche Pursuits podcast, you're taking what it sounds like you had sort of the schema set up as maybe part of a larger package, or when you do a comprehensive, involved optimization of a website, you'll implement the schema process. Like you said, you've already got this. Your team knows how to do it. You've got your SOPs for that already. And now you're just kind of niching that out a little bit into its own little product that you can let people know, yeah, we could do your overall website, but we could just do that, for you now. So I think that's cool. That's great.
Literally went into our SOP and we just grabbed the part where we optimize in the first month for a website. I just hit Command Find, went to the schema section, pulled that out and created a new SOP. Now it's just for schema.
Yeah. It's like, what do you call it? It's like a tripwire offer almost, right? It's a little bite-sized thing. It's like, hey, we'll get our feet wet, let 201 Creative do this schema setup. And what would be interesting, I'm sure you already track, but is like how many people go from that to like, oh, you could also do X, Y, and Z, right? And that's, of course, probably the end goal. Is that's even better.
Even better. Hopefully we can show value and help people out and whatnot. But yeah, so that's just, I don't know. We share about these little side hustle things. That's a side hustle of a side hustle.
Yeah. Yep. The weekend growth side hustle.
A little weekend growth side hustle. You're right. I teased about the Amazon influencer program. I actually looked it up last night because of this story. And I have not done a video in exactly 1 month. So not a single video has been uploaded. I hadn't even logged into my account from 1 month ago today.
Wow.
So,
okay. But a little bit different than December in terms of logging in every,
yeah, as soon as
12
it went
hours
off that nosedive, I'm like, cool, I'll see you after the holidays.
That's right.
But I mean, funny enough, it's earned $1,600 or $1,700 in the last 30 days. Again, I haven't even looked in that time period. But the reason that I was in the account was because my wife got her Amazon influencer account approved yesterday.
That is awesome. That's huge. Okay.
She kind of leaned into all this. I'd be like, hey, when are you and the kids? Are you guys going out anywhere? Because I got to record some videos around the house. And, and so she's like, what are you doing with your time? And so I would start bringing her in on it, showing her and talking to her about it. She got excited about it. So it qualified with a YouTube account that had just under 3,000 subscribers. And so we've talked about, like, as the year has gone on, is it harder? Is it easier? What are the metrics? And that's not definitively the metric, but I just thought I'd share that that's what it qualified with. I posted on Twitter, and Carl Broadbent actually responded and said that he seems to see that it's a lot easier to get accepted with lower TikTok numbers. So I don't know. I haven't tested that, but that's what he said.
Okay.
But anyways, so I don't know. I had a couple people comment. Gareth Boyd was commenting like, oh, is it going to be a little competition, a little family competition now? And I don't know. She's more competitive than me, so she'll probably beat me on that.
Well, we'll have to see how she does, if she goes all in, and if she gets 1,000 videos, in a
Right.
year, maybe we'll bring her on the podcast. You can interview your wife as an Amazon influencer.
I hadn't thought about that.
I
Maybe
would
I'll let
tune
you do
into
the
that
interview.
show. I would tune into that show because there would be so many asides and facial expressions that would be like
Yeah.
nonverbal communication that I would want to see. That would be fascinating to watch.
It would be.
The other thing about that is like, okay, what videos, what products does she review? Does she just take everything you already reviewed in your house and do her own review?
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what she's gonna do.
I mean, why not?
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I mean, there might be some products you go and you're like, well, that's Jared, and then that's his wife Sarah, but no one will really ever know.
Well, if all our videos are ranking above yours and your earnings suddenly drop to zero.
It's like, that looks like the same kitchen the last video was in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh man, that's kind of like taking over multiple positions of the SERPs, right? First page of Google, you got same website, or you own multiple websites on the first page. Just dominate
I literally hadn't thought about any of these things until we started talking about it.
That's the first thing that came out. It's like, is she going to review all the same products? Why not?
Probably.
Why not?
I mean, what else is she going to do?
I don't know. Go to grandma and grandpa's house, I guess.
All right. Anyways, there's a couple fun updates.
I love it. Good stuff. All right, let's move on to our weird niche sites. As always, we found a couple of weird niche sites that are out in the wild. This one is the one that I have is fascinating to me because it's kind of like a sub niche of a niche. Maybe 3 levels deep. I don't know, a sub niche. You've got the overall gaming industry, and then you've got like arcade games or PC gaming, and then you've got competitive PC gaming, and then you've got joysticks, and then you've got competitive arcade style joysticks. I don't know how many subs that is, but my weird niche site is the arcadestick.com. And the arcadestick.com, sharing on the screen here, that I'll be completely honest, I don't know if I should be embarrassed that I didn't know what this is, but I had never realized that you could have like custom built or even arcade controllers like of your own. You can plug these into either your PC. They are compatible with PlayStations, depending on the stick, I guess, the arcade stick. It can be Xbox, Switch, even, it looks like, PS4, PC, right? All these things, they're massive. They sit on your lap, and you've got every button. That's like almost a dozen buttons on there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because they also do custom artwork. Like this website, actually, it looks like you can buy, this arcade stick. There's no prices on here, I think, because they custom build them all. They kind of ask you, okay, what do you want on this? Do you want artwork? What size? What color? I don't know the difference between Japanese and Korean joystick. I'm out of the loop here. And then you request a quote and get the price based on that. So I have no idea how many of these they're selling. They don't share numbers or anything like that, but I can see that they are ranking for some keywords. So if I go over to Ahrefs, the arcade stick is, around 20,000 or so with a little dip here. Organic searches per month. They rank for keywords like, Hitbox, Neobox, arcade stick, Snackbox, Nitro. Anyways, or Micro. All of these are, I assume, names of arcade sticks that are quite popular. And then finally, the last stat that I will share here is SimilarWeb. It shows that they're getting monthly visits of about 100,000 visitors a month. So kind of cool that like this very sub niche, this thing that I didn't even know existed, is getting about 100,000 visitors per month. And whether or not they're like crushing it in sales, I don't know. But very cool. I could see how people that, hey, if you're gaming or competitive gaming, you're really into this stuff and you want to deck it out with, special artwork, and customized, style. It's a cool product. Just one I probably won't ever buy, but maybe when I retire, maybe that's what I'll get into is hardcore gaming here.
It's a DR8, and that's really good traffic for a DR8. Monetized on Mediavine. So it does have ads. I mean, so it's getting income from a variety of sources, I would imagine. I dropped a link for you in our agenda that's interesting. If you want to pull that up, as another way that they're generating revenue. I don't know how much that's making, but I find that interesting.
Oh, there we
go. And oftentimes when
you
go ahead.
Buy me a coffee. The arcade stick.
And I was going to say, oftentimes when you see that, not always, but oftentimes when you see that, you see people that have a bit of a community going, right? Like people who feel a loyalty to a brand, who feel like, hey, this isn't just someone out to make money. This is someone who's actually helping me, right? When you see that set up and people taking advantage of it. And, you did see it dip a bit with some various updates over the last 6 months, but at the same time, it's done pretty well for being a DR8 site. And, speaking to some of the things we've talked about in the podcast over and over again, like it does seem to have a following of people who are pretty passionate. The further niche down you go, and this is niche down, the more likely you are to get something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So, fascinating, right? They've got, they do have some articles, right? Some different things, types of joysticks, gates, right? They explain the difference, so I could learn what the difference between a Japanese and Korean joystick is. So they've got different content marketing that they're doing, but yeah, just interesting audience, interesting niche, kind of cool. Before the call, you were saying that I believe what was his name, Brandon, with what's his video game
Retro
website?
Dodo,
the Retro Dodo, that was on. He probably is familiar with this and is kind of laughing right now as we fumble our way through understanding all the lingo, but kind of a cool sub niche. So
very cool. Very cool. Where'd you find this one?
Well, somebody may have slipped this one to me under the door.
Curious the story of how you personally landed on this one.
That one was handed over to me. Otherwise, I'm so outside the realm of this, I probably never would have seen it.
Yeah, fair enough. Good.
Okay. What weird niche site do you have for us today, Jared?
Well, mine was also brought to me. I actually wrote it down this time. I apologize to those who have never written it down because I get them from, we all get them from various sources. But this one was from Chris with Niche Safari. He's got a great YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
And he messaged me and said, hey, this one's pretty good. It is called emojicombos.com. So you can tell we're talking about an emoji website here, obviously. And so basically it says it's still being constructed. It's in beta. It's pretty clear about that. But in a nutshell, you can use this search box, and then there's also a whole variety of features that you can use. I didn't use it extensively, but just their most popular page is heart. So maybe type in heart here, and you can kind of see what it does. But it does more than just give you emojis like so many do. It kind of gives you these varieties of emojis and combines them, and you can make them fancier, and you can add things to them, and you can. It's very interesting. It's almost like emoji art rather than just straight emojis like you can get online.
Interesting. So every sort of combination of emoji that includes a heart in it is pulled up, and this page is quite long. I could scroll, for a long time.
Forever, basically. I mean, let's be honest here. A few metrics on the site. It's a DR43. It has about 140,000 keywords. It has a traffic of 1.4 million organic visits a month, estimated by Ahrefs. Would be curious what the similar web is. This is something that could get decent social traffic, could get decent direct traffic. It did fine through the helpful content update. I mean, maybe a tiny dip, maybe. It ranks for, I found this interesting. Maybe I'm not very emoji. It ranks for a lot of emojis that are like heart emoji copy paste, right? So if you go to keywords, like a lot of the keywords they rank for are very copy paste. And I never would have thought of that. And it just goes to show knowing these are very interesting.
That makes sense. I mean, so people are just trying to use it either on a website or somewhere, right? They want to put in some fancy heart emoji like, where can I copy and paste that? So I can just copy it, put it in my message, and make it look like I did something cool, but really I just copied and pasted it.
Hey, so here's an interesting one. I put the link down in the agenda, but you can actually make your own emoji. Now, it's not a very good looking emoji, but you can draw right there, Spencer, and make an emoji however you want.
Wow.
You can clean it up. You can add padding. You can do all sorts of stuff. You made different colors.
Right. I got the dollar symbol there. There we go.
Clearly.
Obviously. Yeah.
Glad you said something. I thought you were doing an S for Spencer.
That could be the SH, right? That could be a dollar symbol or like a H overlaying it.
Your initials. Yeah. An H over top of it.
It's not great. It's not great, but I tried.
I mean, the ads are not prominently displayed, especially not in the individual pages. You're back in that heart page and there's banner ads, but they're very subtly placed. They're not overwhelming in any stretch of the imagination, but you got to figure, like, I'm just curious, we know that the way programmatic ads work and the way that these load, like the longer you scroll, the more ads load, the more your RPM goes up. And I mean, how many ad units do you think you've loaded as you've scrolled down here, just looking through all the heart emojis, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's dozens if I keep scrolling for sure.
And millions of page views, even if the RPM is fairly low because of the audience segment, it probably loads a decent number of ad units.
Yeah, I think so. Good little business to be in, right?
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely making 5 figures a month, I would say. What do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And once you're up and running, boy, I guess it's pretty good business. You're ranking. Maybe you create some more emojis, combinations, etc. So interesting. I don't know that I've seen a website quite like this before.
I looked to try to find any information about them, and I couldn't. I mean, there's no footer. The homepage is sparse, to say the least. I'm sure I could have dug, but with the limited time we have, I was not able to find much about who is behind this site.
Yeah, very cool. Good find. Thank you, Chris from Niche Safari, for sharing that one. So there we go. I guess we've gone through the news here, Jared. We have gone through our side projects. We've shared some weird niche sites. Hopefully, given some people some things to think about, whatever that might be. Right? We share some of the things off the top of our head. I always hope that people have some takeaways.
From schema to emojis.
Yeah, that's right. Take your pick, or just get an arcade stick and go play video games all day. One or the other.
We were all over the map today.
Yeah, speaking of the weather outside, I think maybe just playing some video games sounds just about right to finish off my evening while you go do your run out.
Yeah. Speaking of the weather outside,
beautiful trail, I'm sure.
We finished this with enough time for me to squeeze a run in.
All right, well, our job here is done then. Jared's happy, so we're all happy. Very good. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. And if you are, please go subscribe on YouTube on the new channel. It's at Niche Pursuits Podcast. That's where all the interviews and all our news episodes will be posted. If you want to watch the video, if you're happy with audio, you can get that anywhere on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Thank you, everybody, for listening in.
Have a great weekend.
Today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a crazy campaign. How to Sleep on Your Back. This campaign got us links in Huffington Post, Glamour magazine, Mirror, and lots of other great news publications. Let me show you how we've done it. It was so simple. Our sleep client provided us with expert commentary about how to train yourself to fall asleep on your back. They also gave advice on why it's best to sleep on your back. Once we've had this information, we went to Muckrack and searched for journalists that consistently write about sleep and well-being. We've sent these journalists the advice provided by the client, and within 1 day the links started flowing in. Glamour magazine, a DR81 website, picked it up. Huffington Post, DR88, Mirror UK, DR90. A massive avalanche of links blasted through our client's website with this simple yet effective campaign about how to sleep on your back. I hope this inspires, and I hope you'll use this technique to land massive links to your or your client's website.
Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. Just a final reminder that it was brought to you by Search Intelligence. And if you're looking for link building PR campaigns for your website, just head over to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them today. Cheers.